The story begins with Jin Runcandle contemplating a swordsman clan that rules over half the world. Runcandle? People in this famous clan, a lineage of sword masters, are born with powerful bodies and exceptional talent, dominating the world with their martial prowess in battles, plunder, and possession. He reflects on a world where survival of the fittest justifies these actions. This was the clan he was born into. He is Jin Runcandle, the youngest son of the Runcandle clan. He recalls the selection ritual, a significant event that predicts a child's future. During this ritual, he chose the patriarch's sword, indicating that he was destined to lead the clan. Daytona Runcandle remarks that he chose Barasada, the patriarch's legendary blade, finding it intriguing. Jin Runcandle reflects on how everyone believed his future would be filled with success and glory. However, despite the expectations, he had no talent for swordsmanship, the very skill that defined his clan. He questions how any of this makes sense, pointing out that a descendant of the Runcandle clan shouldn't be this bad with a sword. He feels the weight of being labeled the disgrace of Runcandle, dishonor of Runcandle, and falling far below the average skill level in his clan. He was known as the least talented Runcandle ever. One day, while he practices with a wooden sword, Daytona Runcandle mocks him, asking if he's just aimlessly swinging the wooden sword again. Daytona Runcandle chimes in, saying they should leave him be, maybe he's holding out for a special sword. Then, he asks where that special sword is, implying that he's misplaced it. Daytona continues to taunt, asking if he's given up on his special sword, Barasada, and resorts to swinging a mere wooden sword. Daytona Runcandle demands an answer and kicks him, asking if he's ignoring them. Jin Runcandle stumbles backwards, cursing under his breath, and notices his sword nearby. He quickly moves to grab it. He asks why he even bothers to swing that thing when it's clearly pointless, and then places his foot on Jin Runcandle's hand. Daytona Runcandle waves a stack of papers in front of him, asking what it is. Basic swordsmanship theory. He asks if Jin Runcandle thinks studying this will get him anywhere. He asserts that it's pointless to give chances to those who can't achieve anything. Jin Runcandle pleads for him to stop and to give the papers back. However, Daytona Runcandle breaks his sword, arguing that giving chances to those who don't appreciate them only leads to worthless hope. Jin Runcandle insists that he should stop, feeling helpless as Daytona Runcandle tears up the papers. Jin Runcandle expresses his dismay, saying that Daytona Runcandle didn't have to do this. Daytona Runcandle grabs his hair and demands to know what he means, emphasizing that they didn't have to do anything for him. He accuses Jin Runcandle of talking back despite their care and concern for him. Daytona Runcandle asks if this is one of the manners his nanny taught him. He retorts that Gilly has nothing to do with it despite seeing him still fighting back. Daytona comments that they might need to give him a proper lesson in manners as his older brothers. Jin Runcandle reflects on the torment from his older brothers and his own lack of talent, yet he believes it doesn't matter. He thought that with enough hard work, he could earn his family's recognition and become a respected member of the Runcandles. He was genuinely convinced of this. He announces that from this moment onward, Jin Runcandle is expelled from the clan. After some time, Jin Runcandle stands outside a door, kneels down, and says that because his hard work is commendable, they won't kill him. He recalls that when he was 23, he was expelled from the clan and became a wanderer without a clear destination. Around that time, he met his master, which is when he discovered his own talent. He realizes that he indeed had a skill, though it was a forbidden one in his clan, and it involved a talent for magic. The scene then shifts to 3 years later, where Jin Runcandle stands in a room and explains that by connecting the mana in nature with a magician's personal mana, he can recover his strength and amplify the next spell he casts. Suddenly, a black aura of magic envelops the entire room surrounding him, and he is taken aback by this unexpected event. Shocked, he asks aloud who might be responsible for this sudden surge of magic. Solderit claims he is the master of all shadows and the god of shadows. He proposes a contract to Jin Runcandle, suggesting that if Jin agrees, he will gain not only spiritual power, but also the ability to nullify all curses. Jin Runcandle feels a constricting chain around his heart. Solderit calls him a contractor, noting that he seems to have incurred someone's wrath at a young age, which prevented him from manifesting his full talent because of a minor curse. Jin Runcandle asks about the curse, and Solderit confirms that it's a curse known as Bladed Illusion, which represses a person's talent with the sword. He notes that it must have been especially painful for a run candle, given their lineage. Jin acknowledges this and realizes that it might explain why he was drawn to solder it. Solder it then declares that from this moment onward, no curse will be able to harm Jin. The chain around Jin Runcandle's heart begins to break. Solder it observes that all that's left is for Jin to become the magic swordsman of the century, and that he will be watching over him with pleasure. With that, the black aura vanishes from the room. Jin takes his sword and walks outside. As he holds his sword and raises it to the sky, he realizes that, just as Solder it said, he can now see a new level of mastery. Jin notices that the sword feels incredibly light, almost as if it weighs nothing, akin to swinging his own arm. The least talented boy in the history of the Runcandle clan is no more. He considers that if he adds magic to his swordplay, he will demonstrate a whole new level of power. He thinks to himself that his hard work is finally beginning to pay off. After a while, he is severely injured and lies beneath some heavy rocks. He asks whether he just heard something, a scream perhaps. In a painful voice, he admits that his body feels unusually heavy for some reason, and he calls out for Master Solderit, asking if anyone is there. He looks at his book and wonders if he is destined to die in his sleep, questioning if he was meant for nothing after all. He reflects on why he never had the opportunity to use magic or Solderit's power. He thinks to himself that if he was given a chance, he could have done so much more. He asks for another opportunity, hoping that he might yet have a chance to prove himself. The scene shifts to Jin Runcandle's childhood, where he sits on the ground, looking around and observing people from his clan. He wonders what is happening and is certain that he is dead. Gilly notices him and wishes him good luck. Jin wonders why she is there and notices a sword in front of him, recognizing it as Barasada. Surprised, he realizes that it's the selection ritual, and he has been transported back to when he was just a one-year-old baby. Reflecting on his past life, he remembers grabbing this sword by chance. A man approaches and asks if that is the Patriarch's sword, mentioning that the youngest young master had grabbed it. Jin resolves that in this life, he will make his own choices. A gray-haired man is shocked and asks how this could happen. He announces that young Master Jin, the youngest, has chosen Barasada, concluding the selection ritual, and orders them to move the youngest to Storm Castle. The scene shifts to 6 years later at Storm Castle. Jin Runcandle tries to reach for a book, but finds it out of his grasp. He remarks that it's already been 6 years since he came to Storm Castle, and according to the house rules, he must stay here until he turns 10. Which means he has 3 more years to go. He finally gets the book and thinks it's boring. A little later, Jin Runcandle enters his room and asks what's going on. Gilly informs him that there's a dead bird in the young master's room. Jin immediately suspects the only people who would do something like this inside Storm Castle. Daytona Runcandle walks in and mockingly remarks on how pitiful the scene is, pointing out that a servant girl discovered the dead bird first, deeming it a waste. Daytona Runcandle joins in, sarcastically saying that they brought it themselves to show Jin, and asking whether he is so moved by his brother's gift that he's about to cry. Jin covers the dead bird with a cloth, thinking about his brothers. He knows that they become notorious as murderers after becoming flag bearers. Even though they're not yet 9 years old, they killed an innocent bird just to mess with him. Daytona, taunting Jin, tells him not to actually cry, calling it ugly. Jin Runcandle, however, remains silent, not reacting to his insults. He questions whether they can't hear him and wonders if they're implying that he doesn't have to pay attention to them because he's chosen the fate of the Patriarch. He wonders why someone like that would walk around empty-handed without Barasada. Jin Runcandle tries to speak up, but he is interrupted. The other person asks what Jin said, claiming he can't hear him because it's too quiet, and moves to attack him. Jin Runcandle grabs his hand and tells him to be quiet, ordering him to shut up. He then delivers a punch to the chin. As Daytona Runcandle tries to say something, Jin punches him again, declaring that he has been holding back until now, but not anymore. He strikes Daytona Runcandle once more, warning him that from now on, it would be best if he stayed out of sight. Khan enters the scene, witnessing both of them falling down, and asks what happened. Jin Runcandle explains that they suddenly started fighting. He asks for pardon. Jin Runcandle repeats his earlier statement, saying that those two fought each other and then both collapsed. He considers that even the youngest Runcandle can be brutal. Haytona Runcandle questions if that is indeed what happened. Khan indicates that he understands and says he will take the Tonas to the doctor. Jin Runcandle interjects, saying no, his brothers have other matters to attend to, and instructs them to follow him. After some time, Jin Runcandle buries the dead bird in the mud while his two brothers sit by a tree nearby. Khan asks if Jin plans to leave them there, noting that the storm is expected to intensify. Jin explains that his brothers need to grasp the gravity of what they've done. Khan acknowledges his response, saying he will respect Jin's decision and begins to follow him. As Khan walks behind Jin, he senses something different in the air. It's not just aura, it's likely mana. He sees magic emanating from Jin Runcandle's hands and realizes that this incident was not merely a simple fight among brothers. Understanding the seriousness of the situation, he decides to report it to the Patriarch. He spots a servant, calls out to him, and instructs him to bring a horse. After a while, Khan stands near the horse, and Jin Runcandle watches him through the window. Jin realizes that, as he suspected, Khan is going to report to his father. He reflects that although Khan is their guardian knight, he also serves as their overseer. If Khan saw the magic around Jin's hands, there's no way he would just let it go without reporting it. Jin looks at the mana surrounding his hands and recognizes it as spiritual power, the power derived from the contract between him and Solderit. He understands that this contract is valid in this life, too, confirming his earlier suspicions. As he contemplates this, Solderit appears behind him and places a hand on his shoulder. He realizes that with the curse immunity granted by Solderit to his contractor, he has overcome the curse of bladed illusion in this life. Now, the dunce of the Runcandle clan is gone, and his life from here on will be entirely different from his previous one. He knows the only thing left is to meet his father. Meanwhile, Khan kneels in front of the Patriarch and reports everything that has happened. He mentions the youngest child confronting the Tona brothers and advises assembling the knights, suggesting that the Patriarch should meet with the youngest himself. Shortly after, Joshua Runcandle informs him that they have gathered the 7 most elite knights out of the 200 at their disposal. Lord Patriarch acknowledges and declares they will head to Storm Castle. Meanwhile, Mary Runcandle, the 7th successor of the Runcandle clan, sits in a tree and asks Brother Dippus if he knows anything. She adds that she asked Big Sister Luna, but she didn't seem to know much either. She mentions that she had been busy knocking out magicians before this. Dippus Runcandle, the 4th successor, comments that the Tona twins are expected to arrive at Storm Castle next year, so it's unlikely the reason for the visit, suggesting that their father might be planning to see their little brother. Mary asks why he would do that. Dippus explains that their little brother chose the Patriarch's sword during the selection ritual. Mary acknowledges this, but questions whether it's really necessary for their father to visit just because their little brother chose the Patriarch's sword. Dippus remarks that they can never be entirely sure what their father is thinking. At that moment, Luna Runcandle, the 1st successor, calls out to Mary and Dippus. Mary quickly apologizes to her big sister, then wonders to herself whether their little brother is important enough for their father to see him in person. Meanwhile, Gilly helps Jin Runcandle get dressed, expressing disbelief that the Patriarch himself is visiting in person. She asks if he thinks the Patriarch is coming to see him specifically. Jin replies that he isn't sure, but he figures that Khan must have reported to their father as he should. Given Khan's rigid personality, he wouldn't jump to conclusions about magic. He would simply report what he observed. Jin muses that his father is likely coming to investigate why the youngest son appears to be using a power that is neither mana nor aura. The Patriarch would want to evaluate this new power personally, assessing whether it could be beneficial to the future and prosperity of the Runcandle clan. After a while, the Patriarch arrives at Storm Castle. The soldiers bow before him as he enters. He instructs them to summon the Tona brothers. Shortly after, Haytona Runcandle and Daytona Runcandle stand before him, both responding affirmatively to his presence. The Patriarch states that he has heard about their altercation with Jin Runcandle and asks them to explain their role in the conflict. Haytona Runcandle asserts that they did nothing wrong. Daytona Runcandle adds that it was Jin who struck them first, and he used an unusual ability, something that was an aura but seemed like a kind of magic. Both brothers stress that magic is forbidden in their clan. Mary Runcandle agrees, pointing out that if Jin used magic, they should interrogate him before he has a chance to conceal anything. The patriarch stands up and declares that this kind of behavior won't be tolerated in the Runcandle clan. He instructs them to remember that they will not survive in the clan if they act this way. He then orders them to bring Jin in. Jin Runcandle enters the room and observes his father, Siron Runcandle, the strongest yet coldest man he's ever known. His father is the most powerful being of this era, a Genesis Knight who has reached the level of a demigod. Siron was once a normal man, but after attaining demigod status, he lost all the emotions that made him human, becoming a being with a singular obsession, the prosperity of the Runcandle clan. To a father like that, someone without any talent for swordsmanship, like Jin, was essentially invisible. But Jin believes things are different now. In this life, no one will ever be able to ignore him. He stands before the patriarch and bows, saying he pays his respects to the patriarch. He asks why Jin addresses him as the patriarch and not as his father. Jin Runcandle explains that with his brothers, sisters, and the guardian knights present, over 100 people from the clan have gathered. So he assumed this was an official visit from the patriarch and addressed him accordingly. The patriarch considers his explanation and says it's satisfactory. Jin Runcandle thanks him. The patriarch clarifies that he came to the castle for a different reason, so for now, Jin should address him as his father. Then, he asks Jin the same question he asked his brothers: what was the mistake his brothers made in the quarrel? Jin responds that it is about revenge. As a member of the Runcandle clan, one must give back what one receives, whether it's kindness or hatred. The patriarch then orders everyone except Jin to leave the room. A long-haired girl asks if the young master passed the patriarch's test and questions what they are supposed to be doing. She reminds them that the patriarch gave an order. Knight Khan confirms that they must obey his wish, and everyone starts to leave. Mary Runcandle thinks to herself that one-on-one with their father suggests their little brother might be more capable than he appears. The patriarch states that he has sent everyone else away to ask Jin something in private. He mentions that the Tona brothers told him Jin used a special power, and in the Runcandle clan, the use of magic is strictly forbidden, as it prevents reaching the limits of swordsmanship. He asks Jin what kind of power he possesses, warning that if it's magic, there will be severe consequences. Jin Runcandle knows his father won't let this slide now that he's aware of his unique power, Solderit's power. Jin explains that he doesn't know exactly what this power is. It's neither aura nor magic, and he's uncertain how to classify it. He demonstrates his magical power and asks if the patriarch might want to give it a name. Solderit then reveals that this power is the same as the one wielded by the first patriarch. The patriarch reflects on the power Jin has displayed, recognizing it as the spirit of Barasada. It confirms for him that this child might truly be destined to become the patriarch. He calls his father as he observes his confusion. He clarifies that this power is linked to Solderit, the god of shadows. Jin Runcandle asks about the god of shadows, and the patriarch explains that Solderit made a contract with the first patriarch of the Runcandles, Sir Temer. Solderit has been connected to the Runcandles since the house's founding, but after Sir Temer's death, Solderit hasn't been seen by the clan. He admits he doesn't know why, but it seems Solderit has returned to the Runcandles through Jin. Jin asks if Solderit, the god of shadows, is stronger than the patriarch himself. The patriarch acknowledges that he has never dueled with a god and, therefore, cannot say for certain. Jin muses that this response from the most powerful man is both honest and fitting. It speaks to the sheer mystery and uncertainty surrounding gods. He places a hand on Jin's head and remarks that it is a good question, noting that his seemingly innocent question has opened up a deeper topic for discussion. He thinks he made the right choice by visiting Jin today. He then asks Jin how he plans to use the spirit of Barasada. Jin Runcandle replies that he wants to use it for his clan. The patriarch laughs at this and dismisses it as a rather amusing lie. He points out that Jin has beaten up his older brothers and left them out in the storm, questioning how he could claim to use his power for the clan. He instructs Jin to answer honestly in front of his father. Jin realizes that the patriarch isn't easily fooled and admits that he wants to use this power for himself. He nods in approval, saying he likes that response, and then prepares to leave, mentioning that he will be watching Jin closely from now on. After he exits the room, Jin Runcandle feels relieved and says it's over. He admits that it would have been enough to gain the right to use the spirit freely. But his father is now also interested in watching his progress, which went better than he expected. Recalling his past life, he acknowledges that he will indeed live a completely different life this time. After a while, Mary Runcandle comes to him holding a box and tells him to take it. Jin Runcandle asks what it is. She hands the box to Gilly, saying it's a special gift from his sister, meant only for him. She instructs him to boil it, eat it well, and get stronger quickly, winking as she says it. Jin wonders why he's the one receiving such special treatment. After a while, Jin Runcandle opens the box and is shocked to find a phoenix heart inside. He exclaims that it is indeed a phoenix heart and wonders why Mary would give such a rare and powerful item to a mere 7-year-old. He thinks to himself that Mary Runcandle, the 7th flag bearer of the Runcandle clan and a 6-star knight, is also known as Stormwind Mary and has a secret nickname, the Madwoman of the Southern region. Jin realizes that it's typical of his battle-hungry and somewhat insane sister to give him such a valuable item. By helping him grow stronger, she wants him to become a formidable opponent she can eventually fight. He understands that consuming a phoenix heart at a young age could increase fire tolerance and accelerate growth. He also realizes that the phoenix heart is used by 6-star magicians to safely summon phoenixes, and he wonders if, in this life, he might eventually be able to summon a real phoenix with his own hands. Gilly enters the room carrying food and asks if he has been waiting long. Jin Runcandle thanks her. She places the food on the table and mentions that Lady Mary gave him a really good gift before she left, suggesting he eat it while it's warm. Haytoner Runcandle and Daytona Runcandle enter the room. Jin asks if they already have business with him. Daytona Runcandle comments that the meal seems quite large for one person to eat alone. Haytona Runcandle agrees, noting that Gilly had a rather large pot earlier. Jin asks if they are that eager to share the meal. Both of them nod enthusiastically. He then says that they can, but first, he has one request. After a while, Haytona Runcandle and Daytona Runcandle are digging outside a cave. Daytona asks why they have to do this kind of work. Haytona agrees, complaining that there's nothing here, and asks what Jin wants from them. He wonders what would happen if someone found out they were digging in this area. Daytona replies that it doesn't matter. If anyone gets in trouble, it'll be the youngest. Haytona shrugs, saying the soup they had earlier was worth it. Daytona adds that their little brother is a bit scary. After a while, Haytona Runcandle and Daytona Runcandle return home, their clothes covered in mud. Jin Runcandle greets them and remarks that they got back sooner than he expected, while a servant is shocked by their appearance. Daytona Runcandle tells the servant to be quiet, saying they did what Jin asked, so now he should give them the soup. Jin points to a spot and says he left some there for them. Daytona Runcandle asks where exactly, and Jin shows them 2 small spoons filled with soup placed on a plate. Daytona Runcandle asks if this is a joke, calling it a teaspoon. Haytona Runcandle comments that it's far too little. Jin Runcandle reminds them that he only said he would share. He never specified how much, so he fulfilled his promise. He tells them to enjoy and wishes them a good meal. The brothers sarcastically thank him. After a while, Jin Runcandle arrives at the cave, noticing how well the Tonas had dug it out. He acknowledges that he expected them to do a half-hearted job, but they had followed his instructions precisely. He touches the cave wall and concludes that its thickness would only require a 1-star spell to break through. He had been feeling frustrated because he had accumulated so much mana without any meaningful way to use it. He begins using his magical power, causing the roof to start breaking, and a door appears in front of him, which is stuck in chains. He announces that he has arrived at Runcandle's secret library and reflects that this is a place he could not visit in his past life. It feels a bit strange standing there, and he remembers his big brother saying that a special activation phrase was needed when a child of Runcandle came to console Morekin. He opens the door and reflects that this is Runcandle's secret library, a collection of hidden tomes from the clans the Runcandles have vanquished over the last 1,000 years. Access to this library is typically restricted to Runcandle flag bearers. As he steps inside, he is struck by its vastness and remarks that Dippus Runcandle once told him it was pointless for him to know about this place since he didn't have the right to become a flag bearer. Yet now, it's proving useful. He declares that he intends to make good use of it. He notices a large tube in front of him and is surprised to see a figure inside. Upon closer inspection, he realizes the figure has scales, indicating it might not be human. He touches the tube and questions why it is there, speculating whether it could be a child of Runkandle who has come to console Mirakin. He asks if the figure in the tube is Black Dragon Mirakin, and says he heard that the Black Dragon Mirakin lost to the first patriarch and fell into a deep slumber, and thinks that this legend might be true. He then refocuses, realizing now isn't the time to dwell on it. He wonders where the secret tomes are and moves forward to search for them. He finds the books and says he has found them, the secret tomes from various clans. He examines one and identifies it as a secret tome from the once renowned Swordmaster clan, the Kunjin clan. He starts reading it, noting that its content is complex for someone with a 3-star level of understanding. He wishes he could take it with him, but he doesn't want to risk getting caught. He takes a pen and decides to carefully copy the tome's content every time he visits. After a while, he sits in his room reading a book when Gilly enters, holding cake and milk. The scene shifts to a flashback. Jin Runkandle hears a noise and asks who it is. He looks around and thinks there's no way anyone would come to the Storm Castle library right now. Black Dragon Mirakin appears and asks who he is. Jin wonders why Mirakin is there and doesn't recall anything from his past life about Mirakin waking up. He tries to calm down, reminding himself that Mirakin is their clan's guardian dragon. If he acts politely and respectfully, Mirakin might go easy on him. Jin introduces himself as a child of Runkandle and greets their clan's guardian. Mirakin questions being called a guardian and expresses irritation at being treated as such by people who know nothing. He wonders how Jin dared to spread such misinformation. However, he acknowledges that he can't get angry at this little individual. Jin Runkandle notices that Mirakin seems to be getting mad at him. Mirakin curses under his breath, saying he woke up because he smelled something interesting for the first time in ages, only to find a little brat. Mirakin then sniffs around him and asks why he has the scent of spiritual energy. Jin Runkandle inquires about spiritual energy. Mirakin confirms it, explaining that even though he has been asleep for 1,000 years, he still recognizes the scent. He remarks that this level of dense spiritual energy is something only contractors like Temur would have. Jin wonders if his spiritual energy is the reason Mirakin woke up. Mirakin begins searching around and asks where the source of the spiritual energy is coming from, indicating it might be nearby. Jin considers trying something and calls Mirakin's attention. Mirakin responds, asking if he has something to show him. Jin reveals Solderit's magic and asks if this is what Mirakin is referring to. He confirms that his father said this power comes from the god of shadows, Lord Solderit. Mirakin dismisses his previous statement as a joke, stating that he's not serious about it. He acknowledges him as the promised 1,000-year contractor, albeit a seemingly insignificant one. Kneeling down, Mirakin affirms his promise to Solderit and realizes that he is meant to assist Jin Runkandle based on that commitment. Jin Runkandle reflects on the promise with Solderit. He assures him that he will explain the details later, as he's just woken up and feels a bit disoriented, understanding that it might be difficult for someone of Jin's age to grasp. Mirakin decides to formally introduce himself as Solderit's proxy, friend, and the last descendant of the first being of shadow who can transform into a dragon. He informs Jin that, as per the 1,000-year promise, he will be by his side from now on. Jin Runkandle is astonished to see Mirakin, his surroundings suffused with mana, realizing that Mirakin will be accompanying him. Mirakin then prompts Jin to introduce himself, to which Jin responds that he is Jin Runkandle, the 13th and youngest child of Runkandle. He reflects on the Black Dragon Mirakin, noting that Mirakin Mountain, where Storm Castle is situated, was originally named after this dragon. Mirakin was a powerful ruler who dominated the region for many years. However, 1,000 years ago, Mirakin lost a battle against Runkandle's first patriarch, Temur Runkandle. It's said that after conceding Mirakin Mountain and Storm Castle, Mirakin fell into a deep slumber. Jin Runkandle realizes that Mirakin is not an enemy, but rather the guardian dragon and friend of the first patriarch. He considers that the contractor of a god is typically accompanied by a guardian dragon. Yet the details about Solderit's dragon have always remained a mystery. It all makes sense, though, if Mirakin's long slumber is the reason for the lack of information. The scene shifts to the present. Jin Runkandle returns to the secret tomes and wonders if, now that Mirakin is awake, he gets to have a guardian dragon. He announces he's back, and Muraken responds that he is also back. Jin realizes that he will be spending more time with Muraken, and should ask him any questions he has.